Recording in progress.
Hang on. Okay, it should be all right now.
All right, good evening. In a few minutes, we're going to open up the special board meeting tonight. One thing I just want to announce beforehand, in the order of the agenda, we have the citizens' comments at item 3. I'm going to move the citizens' comments until after the presentation from Pewaukee tonight, because after that presentation, I anticipate there may be some questions answered, and then maybe some more questions after that. That would give people an opportunity better to reflect on what's happening at that time. So we also tonight are going to be bidding a farewell to our DPW Director, Joe DeStefano. So that will be happening tonight. That's going to happen first. With that, I'm going to open up the special village board meeting at the Richard Young Memorial Fire Station on Thursday, March 14th, 2024 at 6:32 PM. Roll call, please.
President Osterman,
Here.
trustee Moonen,
Here.
trustee Plotecker,
Here.
trustee Quinn,
Here.
trustee Beal,
Here.
administrator Nicholas,
Here.
interim fire chief Michelle Drager,
Here.
and clerk Elisa Capazzo Catch to record the minutes.
Thank you. We will all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please, in a moment of silence. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under item 4, announcements and correspondence, we are now going to have the farewell to our outgoing DPW Director, Joe DeStefano Jr. Mark.
Joe, if you'd step forward and please address the board for your final time.
You'll have to turn the mic on, Joe.
Good evening, Joe.
Hello.
Bittersweet moment for all of us, especially you. If you guys don't know Joe, which a lot of you do, you'll cherish him right from the beginning because he's a genuine guy. He goes out of his way to help everybody in the town and now village. And he's just all around great leader for our Department of Public Works. This will be his last day, but Joe will not be a stranger to any of us. Joe came to the people of Lisbon in 2013. And in 3 short years, he took on the interim director of Public Works Highway. And it was because the board at the time saw something great in Joe. And over the last 8 going on 9 years, you've beat every expectation that we could ever have for you. What you really like about Joe is he's genuine, he's clean, neat, and he always goes above and beyond in every job, whether it's paperwork, keeping the streets clean, keeping his shop clean. You know, everybody's got great things to say about him. When I was preparing for this a few weeks ago, I walked through the Department of Public Works, and I was hoping to catch Joe around the noon hour, and I walked in there, and it was no surprise he wasn't around because he was out in the street with his guys. And that's where you can usually find Joe, because he was a leader from the front, and all of his guys that are here can attest to that. But it was kind of bittersweet because it was quiet. The only thing that was humming in the shop was the clock and the fans. And if you look around, I took a picture, and I ended up sending Joe a message, and I said, I don't know if this can be replicated, but I'm sure appreciative for where it's at, because you could eat off the floor, and that's probably not something you could say of a lot of public works facilities. But Joe is a man serving the people. And one thing that was really special is we collected the comments from our citizens over the years. And I'd just like to replay them for you. You and your team do an amazing job, and I wanted to let you know how much I appreciate it. Highway rocks. There's no better around. Lisbon proud, June 2020. What a cool video. Just moved to Lisbon at the end of January. We appreciate all your hard work of your team and the explanation of how you do the work. Keep up the great work, Joe. We always appreciate the updates and honesty. Be safe out there, and thank you for taking care of our roads. Thank you. You do a fantastic job, and we're proud to live here. Joe, I can honestly say on behalf of the entire board, you've made us proud over since 2013. And it's bittersweet for us because you're leaving us, but you'll still be around. We know you'll have an impact on our community for a long time coming. And you're not gonna be a stranger to us. So we all bid you farewell in a positive light, and we can't wait to see what great things you do in your next endeavor.
All right, well, thank you, and for a quick little minute or two here, one thing, yeah, I enjoyed it a ton, and I mean, those guys back there aren't just coworkers of mine, you know, they're friends, family, everything. We built something here that I think is something you'll never see in many municipalities, and I've told people that not much gets in or out of that room at our shop without everybody knowing. It's just how we roll, you know, so it's very bittersweet for that fact for me, even though I'm gonna love what I'm going to do tomorrow, and if this was a good try to get me to come back, nice work, good try, but I'm not doing it, but anyways, nice work. But either way, loved working with you guys over the years. I mean, we kind of had this same crew for many years, and then Paula joined obviously a couple years ago or whatever, but I mean, I worked with you all from the get-go, and I think we knew what everybody wanted, and it worked out really well over the years, so I appreciate you guys and everybody here, and the village treated me great, and I hope that's because we treated them well, obviously, so, I don't know. This was unexpected, a bit speechless and unnecessary, but either way, thank you very much. I do appreciate everything you said. That was above and beyond what I was expecting. So thank you very much. Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark and Joe. We're gonna then move on to item 5, which is new business. We have the presentation from the City of Pewaukee Fire Department regarding future fire services.
We good?
Yep, it's on.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. Thank you for having us here this evening. My name is Kevin Bierce. I'm the fire chief with the City of Pewaukee Fire Department, and Assistant Chief Hoppy with me to the side. Both the mayor and the village president asked me to come forward to prepare a small presentation for you to let you know where we're at in the fire service agreement talks. Just a brief cap. We were here about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and we gave you kind of the snapshot of what Pewaukee was and how we do our thing in the city of Pewaukee. We respond to about 3,000 calls a year. We're currently at 30 full-time staff, about 10 paid on call and 7 command staff, along with some civilian employees that work with us in the inspection bureau. So we're fairly robust. We're an ISO 2 fully accredited by the Accreditation Bureau. One of the 9 in the state of Wisconsin and one of 360 in the nation. So we do have our things that we've done in the past to move our organization forward. And we're hoping to share that with you as we go forward. So next slide. When we looked at the agreement, we looked to do some things with Lisbon as a partner. And I think that's an important thing to understand, is that we're looking at this as a partnership, and more than anything else is to share our skills, knowledge, and abilities with your community, as well as the village of Pewaukee, who we're ready to partner with to make us a joint great agency, okay, to better serve all 3 communities, not one, not the other, but all 3, to make us stronger and better together, okay, as we go forward. I've been in the fire service in Waukesha County for a while, okay, 29 years to be exact coming up. I've been around Waukesha County Fire Service for longer than that, probably since my childhood. I've been the chief here for 16 years, and I can tell you just from personal experience, the fire service, the dynamics of the fire service in Waukesha County have changed drastically. And not only in the past 15 years to 10 years, or even the past 5, 3, 2, 1 years, it continually changes. And I think that I give both the mayor and the village president and the board members credit for really being forward leaning and what's becoming the trend in the fire services. We need to see consolidation, shared services, contractual services to meet the needs of these growing communities that are rapidly growing, and with the diminishing fund and revenue sources coming in. So So first of all, we looked at a long-term contract, and when I say we, I relied a lot upon my staff. My staff has been, very, along with, Chief Drager, been very instrumental in looking forward and saying, what would it look like? First of all, is it possible? Can it be done? Is it a reasonable expectation? And can we make it better? And so, and I think when we looked at it and we said, that, well, you know, why a long-term service agreement, or why was it something like that needed? I'll give you an example. When I started in the fire service, or not when I started as a chief, fire trucks are running about $500,000. We just ordered 2 brand new fire trucks for the city, or for the Pewaukee Fire Department. They're almost $1 million a piece. Ambulances run about $450,000. If you look at the long-term ability to recapture those costs, you certainly can't do it in a year or 2 years. It also has an effect on our personnel staffing. We're organized. We have organized labor. We have contract talks. It's important for our members to understand where our organization's going, so they have a strategic look and a view of how it's going to impact them down the road. I mean, simply, if you were a firefighter and you said, okay, I'm going to be here for a year, but that contract could go away in 2 years, our recruiting and retention is going to become a serious issue for us. So when we look at long-term contracts, we're not only looking at the hardcore, the equipment side, but we're also looking at the people. And one thing that I will say about the city of Pewaukee, or the Pewaukee Fire Department, and it'll be true for all, as long as I'm here and as long as many members of our staff is here, we take great pride in taking care of our people, great pride. And so I think when we say long-term contract, again, that comes into taking care of our people. The contract provides for all fire inspection and EMS services, the same that you would have today when you look through the doors. And I say, when I look through the doors or look through the windows of the firehouse, the first thing you would expect is, are the fire trucks going to go down the road? Do the ambulance respond? There's a lot more behind the windows that go to make a firehouse run. Okay. And so when we talk about fire, yep, that fire trucks are going to go down the road just like they do today. We use the same roads and the same pathways to get there. We're going to conduct the same type of inspections as per the state statutes and federal law. We're going to provide EMS services at the same level, which is paramedic level services. But we're also going to provide a very robust public education service. We're also going to provide plan review capabilities. We have commercial plan reviewers on staff. So we have a lot of other stuff that behind the window, the human resources side, the payroll side, the IT side, all the support factors that make the day-to-day operations of the fire service much smoother. Not only make it smoother, but it makes it a very good transition for our employees. They know where to go. They have an HR department, or what we refer to as a people and culture department. So we have that ability to look forward and to take care of our people as well. So, you know, the concern is, you know, what level of service? It's what you have today, just a little bit more robust. Okay. There was concern about, you know, where would we respond to? And we talked about, you know, our staff looked at a lot of different models. We did a lot of data analytics. We're very big into analytics because in data mining, because of our accreditation. And we found that the best way to serve the community as a whole, and when I say the community, I want you to kind of pump away the Lisbon side and the Pewaukee side and think of us as one whole organization. So what's the best way to serve us as a whole? And it's from a Lisbon 2-station model. We just feel that the northeast, northwest corners are best served by having stations that are fully manned and fully staffed to provide that paramedic first response capability with that paramedic to the north and the south. The same way we would do to the southwest corner of ours and the southeast corners of the city of Pewaukee. So when we pop up, next slide, please. If you look at the map, you've got say the donut hole in the center, but we look at the 4 quadrants, and we looked at it and said the best way to do that is really through the 4 quadrant approach. So we conducted a very detailed data analysis of responses that are currently happening, both for the city of Pewaukee and the village of Pewaukee and the village of Lisbon. We looked at that data analysis using several different models. That was data provided to us from the Lisbon Fire Department, as well as the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department and their dispatch information. And we also looked at the National Fire Reporting Incident Model, which is the national information that's provided by your department to the national reporting agencies. We were able to take all that down. We have some very good data analytic people. Chief Hoppy is one of them, who actually goes around the country and does data analysis for agencies, was able to capture a lot of this information, get what we consider to be very pure information, very pure data to help us support our conclusions at the end. We also conducted a very thorough I'll take that back, and excuse me, we conducted a very thorough apparatus and equipment, check. And now we are also in the process of doing the other, subliminal, information or other informational capture that we have to do on inventory. But we did do the equipment. It was interesting because, you know, the first thing anybody says when you do consolidation, shared services, or contracted services is how much do we save in the long run? And the first thing we look at is big things, right? We look at big ambulances at 550,000. We look at big trucks at $1 million a piece. For example, the city of Pewaukee currently operates 4 ambulances at $450,000. We have one on order, $550,000. You currently have 2 brand new ambulances at $450,000. My math's not real good, but that's a lot of money, right? When you're running 4 stations, you certainly don't need 7 ambulances. Okay, so how do we start to look at that? Now, it's just one example of when we conducted equipment and capital inventory status. Other capital inventory things like hose washers, generators, SCBA compressors, not as big a ticket item, but I'll tell you what, I'm pretty sure that I think most of us can agree that 10,000 and 10,000 and 10,000 all adds up to start to get to big numbers. And I'm sure that the city of Pewaukee, the village of Pewaukee, and the village of Lisbon have other places to spend $10,000, $10,000, $10,000, and $10,000. As we go forward, these costs are not going to decline anytime in the near future. I can guarantee you that as we see the engines that we just ordered, I would tell you that if we went back tomorrow and asked for that same bid on that truck, it's gone up by at least $100,000. So now those trucks are 4 years out. We are expecting delivery, I think, in 3 years. So we've scheduled our capital costs so that we spread it out over a long period of time, anticipating the needs of all the agencies. So that's one of the things when we conducted our equipment and capital inventory status. We estimated the service and staffing requirements, and that's basically that 4-quadrant approach. And how do we get the best service to all the members of this joint community or this shared community service? We then provided some initial cost breakouts, knowing that about 90% of our costs can be related to labor. It's a fairly simple number when you utilize the number that's portrayed in our contract costs with our labor union. We then, you know, we're able to basically capture that with our human resources side of town and say, okay, this is what it's going to look like down the road. Again, those costs don't decline. They're not going to decline anytime soon. I know a lot of agencies that I've worked with in the past said, hey, you know what? Next year's a better year to look at this. It'll get better next year. It'll get better next year. Well, I can tell you that 30 years ago when I started in the fire service, these conversations were going on 30 years ago saying it'll get better. And I'm pretty sure that we're not getting any better, okay? And as a matter of fact, I think it's getting tighter as the levy caps continue to squeeze our ability to provide necessary service. So after that, we began that service discussion and we talked about in our staff groups of, you know, what's it look like on a whole? And so I think we have a very good grasp of what that looks like working in this 4-station model. So I'm confident that the service delivery will be as good or better than what it is for all the communities. Again, I'm not going to risk our communities, any one of them, to lower our level of service or expectations of the citizens. So what's the positive impact? Why even do it, right? I think the number one thing for all of us is we're working to stabilize our workforce, okay? You know, we've been very fortunate in the city of Pewaukee to recruit and retain a high quality workforce. The greater thing about the larger organization is as a young firefighter coming on board, you want a couple things. One is you want the ability to move up, move over, move to the side, right? I mean, you want to grow with the organization. You want to know there's a stable platform there, that your community is going to be there. The community as a whole is a good place to work. As tough it is right now to recruit. Our last recruiting drive, we had 22 applications for 3 positions. We have not lost anyone, knock on wood. Our retention is 100% right now of our career members. We're very proud of that in our HR department and our people and services. You know, I mean, we work hard to keep that. One of the advantages of joining this is because now I have an opportunity. If I stay in this organization, I can grow with the organization. There's a chance for me to be a lieutenant. There's a chance for me to be a captain because we just got that much bigger. I now have 4 stations to choose from. I have much more opportunity in a stabilized environment such as that. So when we talk about recruiting base, you know, again, it's our ability to go out and reach out and touch people and bring them to our organization and keep them. Unfortunately for you, as a community of the Village of Lisbon, I've stolen a bunch of your people already, and they're all working full-time in Pewaukee already. So, and we also have a bunch of your village residents that work here. And you know, that's the sign though, is because they go from a smaller organization to a bigger organization. You know, 15 years ago, we took the brunt of it and we gave them all to Waukesha. Okay, we've stopped the bleeding on that side, and now we're pulling back in again. So I think that's one of the biggest things for us, is that stabilized workforce. It addresses redundancy in staff and equipment. We talked about the equipment. You know, you don't need 7 ambulances, you don't need 16 trucks. It's a waste of wax, it's a waste of time, okay? You know, when we talk about redundancy in staff, I'm not saying we're getting smaller. That would be a fallacy to say we're gonna have less people, but what it does is it allows us to take some of the capital, the chiefs, assistant chiefs, disperse that into the working force, and so we have more boots on the ground per se, and be able to share that source of revenue that we would capture and share across the board. Again, looking through the windows of the firehouse, we see the fire trucks, the ambulances, and the EMS stuff, but what we forget to see is that robust support staff that we offer. We have a human resources department, full-time, 2 great people that work there every day to recruit and retain. We have an administrative staff to do this payroll, bill pay, all that stuff on the administrative side that takes up a super amount of time and energy. We have an IT department, because right now we run multiple platforms of information gathering, right? So our records management system, all those platforms are taken care of by our IT department. That's a robust support staff that makes our trucks go around and be effective. And then, of course, the shared capital spending plan, and I'm not gonna harp about it again, but you know, 450, multiple ambulances, multiple trucks, and a lot of them sitting there, right, for no good reason, right? So when we start to move down the road, we do that analysis and go, how many do we really need, okay? And then again, the standardized response protocols. The nice thing is now we'll have 4 stations. We take John or Susie or Bill or whoever the case may be from station A, move them to station B, and they do everything exactly the same, right? So if we're short in one station, we can pull a player from another station. We don't have this, oh my gosh, what do we do today? We're down to 2, we're down to 1. We're stabilizing the workforce. We have standardized response protocols. We're doing stuff all the same all the time. That's one of the things that we drilled when we did accreditation, was to say, hey, we went through the accreditation process for a simple reason, not for a trophy on the wall, but to tell us what we needed to do better. And so we've worked very hard to do that, and we continue to do that. And that standardized response protocol is probably one of the greatest things we've been able to capture over the years. Slide. So our combined status, what we would look like is the big community. We'd be operating from 4 stations, servicing about 3,500 calls annually. Obviously, that count is going to continue to grow as these communities continue to grow. There's no doubt that I don't think any of us are going to be shrinking in the near future. Okay. We'll have 36 career firefighters and paramedics, 9 career firefighter paramedic lieutenants, 8 career staff officers. That would include a fire chief, an assistant fire chief, deputy chief of training, our division chief of EMS, which is a paramedic RN, a community risk reduction officer, which to simply define a community risk reduction officer is the person that's going to go out and deliver. Not only, remember when back in the old days when we did stop, drop, and roll, and we took the kids to the school and we showed them the fire trucks. Well, now what we're doing is community risk reduction, and we're addressing all age groups. So that would be from the CBRFs to the senior housing, slip, trips, and falls, down to the schools to do the stop the bleed programs, tornado awareness. It gives us a much more robust approach to community risk reduction. We're very proud of where that's heading. It's something that we've wanted to do, and we're finally getting some legs underneath that to make that a very robust and rewarding program. We also have 3 battalion chiefs on a 24-hour shift. We have part-time inspectors and administrative staff. We also have paid-on-call firefighters. And I've left some of the paid-on-call firefighters not to diss them or to set them off to the side, but it's very hard to take a little stick man and put them into quarters, because some volunteers, paid-on-call members, are there 12 hours a month, some are there 24 hours a month, some are there 36 hours a month. And how do you split that up and call? These 9 people make 1 FTE. So on a slide, when we show them, you know, they're going to be, you know, it'll look like a gap, but it's not. It's paid on call. But because of the frequency of the turnover, we've tried to decrease that frequency. But unfortunately, the high demand for quality employees in the fire service and the EMS service, we're finding that those paid on call are more transient than they are anything else. So it's very hard to depend on them. Slide. So what does the staffing look like overall? We're gonna use the Richmond Station. Richmond Station is gonna get a battalion chief. These are 24-hour full-time people. And again, we didn't put the paid on call in because I didn't know which way you're supposed to split stick people. I want to be politically correct, so I didn't know if it was through the middle, off the side, you know, diagonal. But be a fire suppression vehicle, and that fire suppression vehicle is an engine, a tanker, a tender, whatever the case may be. But all these apparatus will have all paramedics on. So they'll be rigged up as paramedic engines. So they'll have defibrillators, they'll have the IV kits, the jug kits. They'll be set up as paramedic engines, paramedic ambulances. The Lisbon Station on Good Hope Road then gets a fire suppression vehicle and a paramedic ambulance. Station 28, which is our Pewaukee Road Station, gets a fire suppression vehicle and a paramedic ambulance. And the College Station 29 gets a fire suppression vehicle and a paramedic ambulance. You'll ask, why is the heavy staffing towards the south? It's because the north half of the community would run about 700 calls, and we're running about 2,700 calls on the other side. So we're trying to diverse that. Our protocols will allow for that shifting to occur so that no station in one area is ever unprotected. And we also have, as always, we have mutual aid partners, automatic aid partners that we'd reestablish those protocols to implement those response patterns. Slide. So what's that proposed budget formula look like? We have no contract driven or written or proposed. That's an attorney thing. I'm not that smart a guy. So, but the budget really is driven by usage, really. And when we look at the contract cost, if it's $1 million and it costs you use 30%, it's 300,000, right? And so each community is going to share their own load through that formula, right? Now the specifics of which, obviously there's the smart guy sitting next to me he's still sitting there. Yeah. Smart guy sitting next to me that, that's really an elected officials, policymaker group decision on how those contracts fall out. But that's the intent of the budget, and how that formula would work out is simply by usage, right? I've looked at a lot of different formulas over the years and a lot of different communities, and found that, the best way to do it is simply by usage, right? So it's going to be reviewed annually. There'll be a position for the Lisbon partners to sit in we have a joint committee that makes recommendations to, if there's changes or whatever, and then that would go up to the city council, who's the final approving authority. They'd set the base rate, and then it would go from there. So next. So you say, what's it all look like? How long is it going to take? We're in the conceptual approval of the governing boards. We'd like to move forward. We need to have a contract drafted and approved. Our biggest timeline is the recruitment staffing implementation plan. We're asking for, as fast as we can move. Our HR department has a plan of how this would be kicked off. Our biggest concern right now is that for us to change our response protocols and procedures with the dispatch center will take some time, and we're looking at that, before end of year. We can make the adjustments, but we want to give them priority time. Obviously, WCC is shorthanded just like everybody else is. We can't push that down and say we must have this in an hour, because they'll push back and say, can you do it in 2? So the more time we have to get that ready to go, we would greatly appreciate it. Our staff is ready to implement the operational plans. We have a lot of the draft plans ready, prepared. And just to finalize those final options. So slide. One more. So it's a quick 10,000-foot view. I appreciate the time. I appreciate both the boards, your board and the Common Council and the village board being forward leaning on something like this. I know these are tough discussions to have. But I also understand that I look at, across the state and organizations I'm either attached to or known of, the Village of Alloway, Green Bay, Village of Holman, South Shore, North Shore, Western Lakes, you know, I don't know what to tell you. I don't think I need to tell you of the direction where it goes. Like I said, nothing's getting cheaper. It's getting more difficult for us to run and to be effective. I mean, I think, and the my biggest thing I can tell you is that my name, right, and for what it's worth is, we are working together as a whole, right? And quality is job one. It is the most important thing, and I've done 30 years of, this is very, very important to me. This is not about tattoos and, you know, big hats and fancy badges. This is about the people that live here. I've lived here all my life, right down the road. So, you know, your ambulance crew's done a great job. Your team's done a great job, sir. Our guys do a great job. Our people do a great job, but they do it because they love the people. They have a love for the concerns of the citizens. And I think it's admirable that we're doing it for the right reason, not for the wrong reason. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything, any question or clarification the board would like at this time from anything that's been presented? Anything for you, Paula?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Becky?
No.
Mark?
We had some questions about losing the name Lisbon on our apparatus. Is there a possibility to touch on what that would look like conceptually at this point? Nothing's been agreed upon, but
I wouldn't see the names being taken off. Our proposal would be that we're gonna run by the WCC new county numbering system, which is, like, for us, it's station 28, station 29. I mean, you know, the name to me is truly in an emergency. I don't know, I've called the ambulance several times for my parents. I never looked to see. I would just leave it. I'm not gonna scratch. There's no intention to scratch it off and make it something else.
secondly, people had questions about insurance ratings or the ISO rating. I know you're not an insurance rater, but is there an expectation for people?
My expectation would be, knowing, having done ISOs for many, many years, is I would not see a decline in the ISO rating and the potential for raising the ISO rating. We're on ISO 2, and if you look at the subcategories of the ISO rating schedule, a lot of it depends on number of personnel, training personnel, number of hours of trained personnel. Those I would accept to accelerate. You know, they have, the way ISO is set up on their grading schedule, they have a coefficient factor that goes in there, and it's kind of like the secret number. The heaviest thing that would change would be water supply, and there's gonna be no change to the water supply. So I don't see where there'd be a decrease. And I would potentially think that within some time, there would be an increase, or, you know, a better score. I don't know how you want to call it, decrease, increase, right?
It's reversed. which
Right.
is-
Another thing I got as a question was, are we gonna lose our firefighters in the community through some things like our CPR classes, our public appearances?
That's the community risk reduction officer that we talked about. I mean, if anything, we want to make that a very robust. I mean, we've got schools, you've got schools. You know, when we look at community risk reduction now, what we want to do is look at it as a whole, right? You know, like I said, we used to do a lot of the, hey, stop, drop and roll thing down at the schools, which isn't going to go away, right? That's still a strong part of our platform. But what we're going to do is expand the breadth and the depth of it. So, for example, in the Pewaukee School Districts, we did all the teachers and with the Stop the Bleed program, right? We were in the schools for weeks teaching all the teachers Stop the Bleed. We installed Stop the Bleed kits. You know, we worked closely with the sheriff's department on a lot of stuff. You know, we've got known risks that are acquired, you know, just by our growth, right? The CBRS. So we look at, you know, elderly care, we look at homelessness. I mean, those are things that are coming to, if they're not here, they're coming, right? And so it's best for us to have those public education venues open. And that's why this community risk reduction officer, I think, is going to be a really strong point for all of us.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
So at this time, we're gonna open it up to the public for public comments. So this is a board meeting, so the public comments tonight would be questions that give to the board, or statements actually to the board. We are not, it's a board meeting, not a public hearing, so you would make the statements. We're not able to respond to you. We will write them down and use them in our deliberations, but it would be you talking to us tonight. If you want to step up to the podium, please state your name and address. I have never had time limits. But I would appreciate if you keep them compact if you can. I mean, if somebody has a comment, you want to reiterate what they said, I agree with such and such person. We want to hear I want to hear what you have to say. Everybody here wants to hear what you have to say. We just don't want to be here till 2 o'clock in the morning, repeating the same thing over and over. So whoever would like to come up for the first comments, please step up to the mic, state your name and address, please.
My name is Anthony Savorius. Address is W244 North 8883 Cordell Lane, Sussex, Wisconsin, or Lisbon, however you want to say it nowadays. Concerns I guess that I have is that the one tanker truck that Pewaukee is proposing to keep is staying at the Richmond facility where all the hydrants are. And the ones that are not where I live, it's gonna be farther away. And if you guys keep on saying that we're short-staffed and we're having problems maintaining the problem of personnel, and when you guys are going to rely on, I guess, other stations to come in to help us with the fires or anything else, I imagine we will get Richfield to help us with another tanker or anybody else. What are we gonna do when they're short-staffed and they don't show up? And you guys only have one tanker? When is the problem then? Whose fault is that? Decisions made. I guess that's my main concern. And the other question that I have is that everyone keeps on saying that we're gonna have 9 stations or 4 stations, 14 fire trucks and all these other things. No one's talking about the backup rigs that you guys will need for the oil changes. Who's gonna do the maintenance? What happens when we take back the fire trucks and we just decide that we don't need to have a contract anymore? What happens when they're not maintained the way that they should have been? Who gets the bill then? Us, at the end of it. Just like we did back in the day when we first started to join our own fire department, it's because we got out of a contract. And now you guys want us to get into another contract. We already stuck with the contract with Waukesha County Sheriffs that we can't get out of. And we sold our 2 cop cars and we have to buy now 2 cop cars, which I know is gonna be expensive, but I'm not understanding how this is better helping any of us. I don't even see a now hiring sign outside of the Lisbon Fire Department Station 1 or 2. Or on the state page or anything else. And nobody says that we don't have a problem with money, but we definitely can't pay our paramedics more. I see that we're short-staffed already. This week, there's only 1 truck out of the Good Hope one. Somebody must have called in sick. So, and now we already have to wait for them to get the SOPs and everything else back up to standard, but who's gonna control this then? Who's gonna give us the paramedics to supply for the community now that we need you guys? It's not gonna be an overnight thing, just changing with the Pewaukee. All we're doing is we're giving our problems to them. When it's our problems that we should be solving, not anybody else. That's my view and opinion on everything and concerns, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to go next? Anybody on Zoom?
If anyone on Zoom would like to make a citizen comment, please use the raise hand function.
Gary Matson, North 75, West 27177 Oakwood Road, 40+ year resident of Lisbon. Piggybacking what he stated about the maintenance. Now, according to what the police chief or fire chief said from Pewaukee, we'll have a total of 7 ambulances with 4 stations. He made the comment about getting rid of them. My concern is with all the exhaust emissions regulations, they have a lot of downtime because of the emissions. In fact, I deal with I work at Badger Truck Center. I deal with it all the time, and I don't think they should get rid of them all. They need backups. I still don't understand, what's the main reason why we want to merge with Pewaukee? I didn't receive anything in the mail. The only reason I know about tonight's meeting is because it was posted on Facebook. So what's the main reason why we want it? Because of staffing problems? And the other thing I have concern about is he said that Pewaukee's organized, which is great, but what happens if they decide to walk on a strike? What happens to us? I'm fortunate, I've never had to have an ambulance come or the fire truck. But, I just don't want to be sitting there, sorry, we're on strike, so we have nobody to come to your call. That's my concern. Thanks.
Did anyone raise their hand in Zoom?
Drew? No hands raised on Zoom.
Else?
I'm Deb Foot, N65 W22201 Silverleaf Drive, number G3. I guess my concern is response time. I know he said that they would use the Good Hope station and the other station, if I understand correct, are two stations that we have. I guess I'm just concerned that is that enough for us, you know, or if they decide, I know there was talk that the Good Hope isn't up to code. So are we gonna get hit putting in another station down the road because of that? Or are they gonna use that? I guess I know there was a situation with the Western Lakes Fire Department a few years ago as far as response time. And it didn't cause the death of a person, but it had an effect. So I guess where I live, there's over, it's in a mobile home park. There's over 330 homes, 600 people. We have 90 acres and a lot of it is wooded acreage. So I guess I'm just looking at response times and is there going to be equipment enough close by to accommodate us? From when I looked, the two Pewaukee stations from where I'm at are either 13 to 17 minutes away or 18 to 19 minutes away. So I'm trusting our responses would be at the Good Hope stations. And are we gonna have the water facilities, EMS, everything, if they're at the southern end? So I guess I'm just looking at coverage for us, and that's a concern. On top of a lot of other things. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Good evening, members of the board and those in attendance. My name is John Gescheidmeier, Gscheidmeier. I live west 277 north 8799 North Face Court, pretty much on the northwest side of the village. It's important that I give you my background. I've shared this on Facebook. I was a police officer for 27 years. I taught at almost every police academy in southeastern Wisconsin, Madison, Fox Valley, Black Hawk. I was a firefighter for 4 years, paid on call. Grew up in the Waukesha, Pewaukee area. We've lived here for 8 years or so. I was a police officer in Glendale for 20 years, and in 1994, they began the consolidation and the creation of the North Shore Fire Department. And they took 6 communities, which were manned almost all by full-time people, and then River Hills, which was all paid on calls, and they merged those departments. And of course, it came with learning lessons and things that they learned. Waukesha County did do a study many years ago, and I think from some of the comments on Facebook, it's important to remember that study was consolidated or was commenced by the county with, of course, consolidation, contracting to better serve residents. For me, I look no more than maybe a couple properties to my west, and I know that the residents in Merton don't enjoy the same type of services available that we do here. I want to also commend the fire department, and I want to use an example. On October 5th at about 5:45 in the evening, I was maybe about 20 seconds behind a fatal crash that occurred in front of our subdivision on Lake 5 Road. And being first on the scene is something I've done, and I've been at many fatal accidents over the years, not only in fire, but police. And I knew there was nothing anybody could do. Fire department did everything they could do. The extrication went perfect. From what I know of this is not something that is being taken lightly by the board or the village or anybody involved, and those residents who have come forward, whether I would personally agree with their comments or not. I do know that in today's day and age, working for a municipality, and I was our union president for 3 of the 7 years I was on our board. And before I left, I recommended to our police officers that they look at creating a police officer or a North Shore Police Department. the opportunities for current members and members that join the new department, even under a contract situation, are immense. The chief talked about that today. There may be people that don't qualify if the standards aren't met. And we saw that with any consolidation with the city of Pewaukee, where I was a town of Pewaukee cop years ago. But when they contracted with Waukesha Sheriff, there were people that didn't qualify because there are certain department standards. Pewaukee has a great reputation. The benefits outweigh the negatives by dozens. And I would ask that the board consider the cost savings and cost stretching. And from not having a proposal, of course, we trust you, I trust you and give you my full faith and backing to investigate it, to look at how we as a community of 10,600-ish people address the staffing needs. As a volunteer, I think in my department years ago, we maybe had 80, 90 people. Now, as much as a 55-year-old guy would like to come out of the woodwork and rejoin the fire department, I can't. I don't have time. And in today's challenge where everybody's working 60, 70 hours at their full-time careers, they can't get back to the community and join. I'd love to volunteer again. I kind of miss that part of my life. But the priority is to find the best solution for everyone in the village, for all of our residents. And that's what we have you guys here. And I commend you for studying it and for looking at it objectively. You know, it's scary when you try to remove a police or a fire department from a community, it strips a little bit of that community away. And other people have said that before, and I think that that's recognized. State aid isn't what it used to be. The advantage of consolidating or contract is that you don't have to worry about the staffing. If somebody doesn't show up for work or they're sick, you've got other people that can fill in. And we see that with the sheriff's department now. We have much better staffing than we had with a town of Lisbon police department, which arguably was before we were residents here, but I still knew and I trained those guys. Change is not easy and it's not fun. And when you look at the challenges today and all these other fire departments that have merged services, the equipment, the staffing, all of that stuff gets worked out. And I understand the fear, as the gentleman said earlier, what happens if we back out of it someday? Well, ask Vernon how that worked for them. Because they did that and now it didn't work out so well. The advantage to us from what I see and from what I saw from the presentation is staffing. And I'll just close with saying that I trust all of you to make those decisions and investigate it properly. And from what I saw and I read, and just from my own personal interactions with people, especially fearful people that don't really understand and know what to expect with change, is that we all open our eyes and ears and listen and learn and take an open mind to what could be much better. I think that's the whole goal of all of this, is to improve what we have now. And I just hope, and I haven't lived here as many years as other people, but I just hope that no one walks away from this meeting thinking that our fire department doesn't do what they're supposed to do, or that they're not good at what they do. I commend you guys. You are my brothers, even though I was only doing this for a few years. But in law enforcement and firefighting, we are brothers. And no matter where you work, no matter what you do, anything can happen at any time, and you stand ready for that. And I appreciate that too. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's one hand raised on Zoom. Trying to find him. Okay, T on Zoom.
Okay, gotcha. Can you hear me?
No, hang on, you're not coming through.
Let me try something else here.
It's us.
Okay, try.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, that'll work.
That works.
Okay. I just want to, I agree with a few of the other sentiments that were talked about earlier.
Please state your
Um,
name and address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tim Nigbert, W278 North 8810 Twin Pines Circle.
Thank you.
I just had some Thank you. I just had some general comments to make. Pewaukee, first of all, I'm wondering who approached who in this whole process. That's what has not been told. I also agree with the gentleman who said, how come we just saw this on Facebook now? It should have been put out to all of us. It wasn't. Just caught something on Facebook now. And within a day or two, you're having a meeting. Third thing is, Pewaukee put out there, and I'm not saying for or against, just to put that out there. They put a plan out. They said they're almost done with their plan already. They did all these analytics and everything. They said it's going to be on usage. The cost is going to be based on usage. Surely they should have some basics as to what the contract would look like. So what's the bottom price for us? How much of our taxes are going to go up? We should, if that plan is that close, we should know those things. They already got staffing laid out. They got trucks laid out. They know where they're going to be. Okay, so what's the cost? They should present the cost to us, you, the board, and then it should be then passed on to the rest of us so we can decide whether or not it's cost effective or smart to do this thing. It's not just based on cost. I understand all that. But I thought that would have been at least part of the presentation. So those are my comments, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Looks like no one else on Zoom at the moment. Anyone? Sure.
Marlene Graziano, W226 and 8144 Longview Drive. The chief had presented a donut hole. I'd like to know how big that donut hole in the area that he talked about is, and how is that going to be maybe addressed? I was taken in the map, he showed there was a big white spot. I take it that's what he was talking about.
We're not supposed to have back and forth, but I'm just gonna say quickly, it's Sussex.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's what I was wondering, where that all was, to how that was going to be worked out. Okay, thank you.
My name is Joe Farley. My address is N67 W26231 Silver Spring Drive. I would like to say that 44 years ago, in just a few days, I stood in front of 600 people at Hamilton High School and presented a proposal to start the Lisbon Fire Department. And it's quite ironic that I stand here now and I've listened to this presentation. When I did mine, I was supported by Dennis Wenger. He was an MBA that was brought in, a structural engineer from A.O. Smith, two fire chiefs from major communities, a whole array of other consultants and advisors that backed me up. And at the time, the people in the town, under the power of a special meeting, voted to start the fire department in the peak of an enormous recession, when unemployment was, as I recall, 13, crime rate was 21, and inflation was 12. Now, it's 44 years later. I stand here having started this department from nothing, trained from nothing, 42 people, and started the department from March and went into business on New Year's Eve. And I really have to say, I'm astounded that our esteemed colleagues from Pewaukee came here with a very similar thing to what we escaped from. And that was a contract provided by the Village of Sussex, which went up at a rate of about 28% a year, accelerating. And now you have before you the ability as a village board to enter into an agreement where you have absolutely no numbers. I listened to Chief Bierce. I have nothing but respect for him. But
I had to have numbers. This is a very fuzzy and imprecise thing involving millions of dollars and people's lives. And I think that you have an obligation to quantify those numbers very precisely and to give us a proposed contract to view. After all, we do live here and we do elect you. And that's just normal due diligence. Now, if it is a good idea, it will withstand a vigorous test. And along those lines, I make this request that before this board goes off on this possible decision, that they at least allow the first fire chief and the second fire chief to discuss with them informally for maybe 30 or 40 minutes, separately, individually, their possible inputs on this concept. And that's all I have to say. And I appreciate you, I have to say, I endured all kinds of boards. I've been on a number of fire departments. I was a police officer, a number of police departments, dedicated my life to public safety at great personal expense and that of my family. But I know what it's like as a department head to work for a board. And some people we're not all equally yoked. Not everybody puts their due diligence in. Some people are motivated differently, but it's very hard to be on a board and put up with the endless talking and all of the sometimes just total gibberish before we finally get to the meat of the matter and make decisions. So I have confidence in what your decision ultimately is, but I think this is very premature. And I think it's not articulate enough that you, and you really represent us, can say, yes, this is a good idea. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Is anyone else?
All of that, but I just have a few comments. Jean Calavoda, K-A-L-I-V-O-D-A, and 91 W25590 Tomahawk Drive. And I've lived here for 35 years. To me, this doesn't really sound like a merger. It sounds very one-sided. It sounds like Pewaukee will be taking over our EMT and our fire services. I don't know, I guess that just makes me, I also found out about this on Facebook, and I think something should have been sent out to people. This is pretty important. And also the financial end of it. I'm not sure how this benefits Pewaukee. And, I heard something on the news, and maybe it was the town and not the village, that they were charging, increasing taxes on just it was $1,200 on, I'm not sure if that was the village or the town, but anyways, they said we're charged by how much we use. So that's almost like an after fact. I mean, how do you charge our taxes for that? Do you wait till the end of the year and, you know what I mean? And see how much services we've used? I live out by the Good Hope, and my first thought was that station wouldn't be there, and I'm at the far end. I'm near, Kew and Hillside. So that was my first thing, was how, are they coming from Pewaukee? So I guess, I've had to call an ambulance, and I've had people there in a few minutes. So I don't know, I guess I'm just a little bit unsure of it, but thank you.
Thank you.
Rebecca Grill. I'm at W250 and 9165 Hillside Road. I just had a few concerns. I did also find out about this on Facebook. So I'm not sure how long these discussions have been going on, if at all. It seems like Most of them have been with Pewaukee. So some of the other people talked about what problem are we trying to solve? That would be helpful to know. Also interested in the timeline. The presentation was very high level, not a lot of details. The chief mentioned that it was a partnership, but he's not listening to the people that he'd be partnering with. So that's kind of a concern. It is very one-sided as far as what was presented tonight. So I would hope that all of us would have a chance to look at the contract before the board would engage in that. I'm a city administrator for the city of West Allis, so I'm very familiar with consolidation and contracts. So I have some thoughts about what should be in there and what shouldn't. But I just hope that no decisions are being made without that coming out, because that would be very detrimental to our village. Thank you.
Thank you. Speak.
Christy Steinmetz, W249 and 7876 Hillside Road. We've been citizens of Sussex, Lisbon, town of Lisbon, village of Lisbon for the last 17 years. We like the fact that we've got a local fire department, EMS. It's our neighbors, we can count on them. I would like to learn more about this. If you guys are willing to open up another board to review the panels and all the information, I'd be willing to be on that board if you guys would allow me to. Maybe she'd like to be on that one as well. But if you guys are willing, we'd like to get some more information on that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Lisa Zindars, W260 and 5833 Mary Hill Road. Kind of reiterating some of the things that other people were saying about the cost. We don't know what the cost is. That I'm anticipating that our taxes are going to end up going up because we're going to be paying for them. And they're coming after Lisbon because they need money. So how do you get it? You get it by adding more people and taking our money and giving it to them. So our taxes are going to go up. I don't like that. Well, obviously, nobody likes that. Another thing is the response time. That if they're reducing equipment, and especially with the Good Hope location, and if there's not much equipment and not many people at the Good Hope location, there's a train. So that's going to increase the response time from this station or any other station in Pewaukee to get over there to help those people. Then what? You're going to have Menominee Falls or someplace else respond, and they're already understaffed and overburdened. They're not going to have the response time for over there either. So that leaves a whole section of our village that's going to be barely protected. And part of the statement when we went to incorporate was that you guys were not going to make any changes to our fire and emergency services. And all of a sudden now you're making changes, or you want to make changes. That's not what we agreed to. That's not what you guys said that you were going to do, and you're backing out of it. If we want to partner with somebody, why don't we do it like with somebody said that Martin isn't as well equipped. Well, maybe partnering with Martin and some of the other ones around here would be a better solution. Then, because that way it's all the ones that are in kind of the same shape, that it would benefit all of us instead of it being a lot more lopsided towards Pewaukee, where all they're after is our money. And they are planning on getting rid of half of our equipment anyway. So all they want is the money. That's not fair. The lack of notice. Most of us only heard about it because we saw it, somebody posted it on Facebook. This should really have gone out to everybody with more notice. And before anything is decided, it should be on a public vote or at least a referendum to see what everybody has to say about it. And if most people don't know that this is going on, you know, all of a sudden it's gonna change and they're gonna be like, hey, wait a minute, we didn't know. Yeah, you can say, yeah, it's on the website. But reality is hardly anybody looks at the website. Or wherever it is that you know, whatever newspaper you posted it in. Okay, I think it's like the Freeman. How many people look at the Freeman? You have to notify everybody because this is going to affect everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Hi, my name's John Hunfelder. I live at N87W25121 Waters Edge Drive. I heard about this several months ago. There was some blurb on that and was busy at the time to get real involved at it. Then when this meeting was tonight, I figured I'd come here to get a little more informed. I owned a business in Pewaukee for 18 years and had a lot of interaction with Fire Chief Pierce. That they have a very good program. He's about as straight a shooter as you can ask for. In the amount of time I've probably known him in Pewaukee area for about 30 years. And the interactions we've had in situations where we needed fire or EMS, they're very prompt, very professional, and very thorough. They did a great job. So personally, I'm happy you're dealing with him, me personally. I don't know all the particulars, cost-wise and that. I don't really think it's a money grab. I think it's more of a sharing this to kind of keep down an equipment and being able to utilize all the resources they have would be effective. So it's definitely worth looking into, I think. But we got a great fire department now. I've never had any issues. I've never had a need for them, luckily. But yeah, you got to explore it, I guess. But I don't know how you get it out to the community to let everybody know what's what. Do you do a big email blast or what? I don't know, but it's hard to say. Facebook is not the best place to find out about that stuff. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Steve Plato, W279 North 8801 Twin Pine Circle. Like many of you here, I have also lived here my entire life. Yes, not as long as some of these other people, but I've lived here over 30 years. Not only that, I have worked on the Town of Lisbon Fire Department for over 7 years. I currently am a full-time firefighter with the City of Pewaukee Fire Department. So I am in favor of that, but I'm coming here as a town resident right now. Just to clear up some of this stuff, hope I don't get in trouble from my command staff next day I go into work, but response times are not going to go down. They're only going to get better. Being an accredited department, we have to hit standards. If we don't hit standards, we're going to lose that accreditation. That comes every 5 years. And from there, if we lose it, then we have to get it back. So response times, staffing, everything like that is going to get better. Staffing, like Chief Pierce showed, that's what we're going to have. If someone calls in sick or if they're not there, we're calling in overtime. Okay, so we're going to have those people there 24/7, full-time staff. I know I have a lot of friends still on Lisbon Fire Department. They don't have enough full-timers. We don't. And to do a referendum would cost millions of dollars that people don't realize. By combining, this is hopefully going to save money. If it's not, it's going to come sure close. Rigs, I know people talk about You're gonna keep backup rigs? Yes, we're gonna keep backup rigs. Okay, we're gonna get rid of some of Lisbon, we're gonna get some of Pewaukee's. We're gonna keep the best rigs we have available. So just want to make that clear. We're not getting rid of everything from Lisbon. And yeah, I think that's all I've had. I just want to clear up some of the stuff that people have commented on, but I'm all for this proposal. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Butzloff. I live at West 274 and 7323 Howard's Pass. I apologize, this may get a little lengthy, but I do want to address a few things and want to address a few things that Chief Pierce had brought up also. So the first thing I'd like to be brought up is the RFP process and how that kind of came about. Any RFP processes I have been a part of, and I've been a part of RFP processes through several places where I have worked. One place that I particularly work now is one of the largest employer healthcare companies in the United States. With RFP processes that have gone on, I have never seen one entity only. With an RFP process, usually it is 3 or 4 entities that are coming to the table. So that is one thing that has concerned me with this process. The other thing that has concerned me with this process is that it just kind of how it seems that we haven't been notified that the board had been talking to Pewaukee. Also with an RFP process, usually they put out what they're requesting, and then that particular entity comes back with their RFP process, and it's usually very detailed with cost, very detailed with how would they be providing those services. And while Chief Pierce was a very good orator tonight, I highly respect him. I did not feel like he gave us enough detailed information. In regards to what else could be done, how else could we solve any problems that the board might perceive that is going on with our current staffing model or with our the money that is going into the fire department, how we can fund things. I have seen referendums be done and be done successfully in other communities. One such community is Germantown. Germantown had tried for several years to get a full-time staffing with their paramedic process and actually did not have paramedics at the time. They were able to, after 2 attempts, they did have to do 2 attempts, get that staffing. So I would like the board to entertain the possibility of a referendum. I would like the board to entertain the possibility of an RFP process from other organizations, if not only to compare what Pewaukee might be proposing. Right now, you can go online and you could look at our LFD budget. And what you will find is that the highest cost would be for personnel. And that's, Chief Pierce did allude to that. He did allude that 90% of cost would be for labor. Now, let's just take that into account, what he also said. He did say that we would be fully staffed in 2 stations. Fully staffed, he did not specify with full-time staff, with paid on-call staff. He did not specify. He did specify that there would be 36 firefighter medics throughout our combined joint effort. 9 lieutenants, he stated, 8 staff officers and 3 battalions. Now, as I understand that, they would all be full-time. If you look at the cost for a full-time fire department member with their salary and also with benefits, you are looking at over $100,000. You guys do the math. 36 plus 9 plus 8 plus 3 times $100,000. The other thing that I wanted to address, and I may have heard Chief Beers misspeak, but when he described what would be coming out of this station, this Richmond station, and again, I might have heard him misspeak, but he said 1 battalion chief that would be 24/7 and an engine company. I did not hear of an ambulance coming out of this station. That concerns me greatly. Good Hope was going to have an engine, an ambulance, and a tanker. I would like to also make mention that I am concerned about the lack of a second tanker being available. Another thing Chief Beers did not address was what would happen with our grass rigs. This is a concern. As many of you may know, there was a very, very large grass fire from Menominee Falls all the way through Lisbon and into Merton. Those rigs have to be addressed, and how are we going to be staffed with those? Because yes, maybe lives may not be completely at risk, but definitely property would be. We also have to look at, with our consolidation, how many square miles we are actually trying to cover. And I don't want to misspeak, but I believe that the Lisbon is 26 square miles. I believe I heard Pewaukee is 23 square miles. That puts us around 50 square miles of coverage area. It's a large coverage area. What I'd like to know, or what I would like to get clarification from, is how and what would happen if the Pewaukee Fire Department needs to respond to the village of Pewaukee. And that would probably be happening frequently. They would more than likely be coming out of this station if they're responding to the northwest side of the village of Pewaukee. If staffing is gone from this station and we do not have an ambulance coming out of this station, we would need to backfill. They would have to backfill down to this station, which means the Good Hope station would not be manned. That's a concern. How are we going to cover that? I also would like to know what's going to happen with our equipment, our vehicles, and our personnel. That was not completely addressed. Equipment was to a point, and vehicles to a point as to what may be jointly put together. But what we did not talk about is what would happen to our personnel. What I'd like to state is that when you are a firefighter, paramedic in the state of Wisconsin, your certifications are the same across the board. So are your firefighter certifications. They are mandated by the state. So the service that you are getting, or the caliber that you are getting from your fire department members, would be the same across the board. Now, you could argue whether training is the same, whether that's different, whether that's more, what a department might have to offer. But again, recertifications and the hours for those recertifications are mandated by the state. Chief Pierce also alluded to that we may not be decreasing our care for paramedic service, but right now we are a critical care paramedic department. As far as I know, Pewaukee will not continue that. I would like to also address why it might be beneficial for us to stay with our staffing model, or why it's important to have what we have right now. I want to allude to a 2019 call in which it was the coldest day of the year. There was a fire on Good Hope Road. There was a gentleman that was trapped in this fire. What may not be known is that our particular ambulance was on another call at the time. We responded with what we had to this fire, along with Sussex Fire. who was able to pull this particular gentleman out of that building. At the time, there was no ambulance on scene. And that was because they were out on another call. What you don't understand is the value that you have from the members of this community that are on the fire department. The fire department members that did respond to pull that ambulance were not on call. They were not on shift, but they did respond. Had they not responded, I don't know what would have happened to that gentleman. The gentleman is alive today because your fire department members came when they were not on call. I just want you to take that into account. I would also like to request of this board to not make any rash decisions, to look at this proposal and to definitely make sure that this is in the best interest of all involved. And I would very much hope that you would table this and not make a vote tonight. Please get all the information. Please look into things. Please look at budgets from other departments and the budget that could be put in place and what that's going to mean to us as taxpayers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? See anyone on there? Anyone else wish to speak? So this will be after we close the public comments, the deliberation will come up to the board at that point in time. So this would be your final opportunity to speak on this tonight.
Mary Fallon, N56 W26106 Richmond Road. I, like other people stated tonight, was surprised to hear about this meeting, just surprised to know that you were considering something without any correspondence to the voting public in the now village of Lisbon. Disappointed that the current fire staff had no idea. They feel a little undermined. They feel, and I know you don't really care that they feel that way because you've been at this according to the fire
ma'am.
chief.
Okay, we've been very good tonight without insulting people or speaking that way towards people. So we're gonna continue that.
Okay, I apologize. I
And
just
fire-
heard the chief say that this has been going on for a year and a half. And the community didn't know about it, so that you can call it what you want, then I'm sorry that I said that. But we were blindsided by all of this. Don't understand why, because again, there's been no communication. Is it money? When the roads were an issue, when we had a special meeting and they asked for money, we all voted and said, yeah, let's do it. If it's money, because it's going to come to money when Pewaukee takes over, because they're at a higher level in terms of cost, their union, which is they're already at a higher level. So we're going to be at a different level of for cost of fire service. I would hate to think this is a done deal tonight and you've already made a decision without taking, especially what a community fire department brings to the community and the pride of that. Plus, I can't even imagine how this group of firefighters feel. Have you talked about their job security, or is that a possibility? Are they just out of a job? And then after tonight, are they going to be looking for other jobs knowing that there's a possibility? Are we going to lose more in the meantime before we get with Pewaukee? because they're feeling not secure in their positions here. So are we going to be severely understaffed? But I hope you can take all of these things into consideration and we don't find out tomorrow that this had already been decided ahead of time and we're just a legal thing that had to go through tonight. So thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak?
Carrie Carpenter, W 260 N5913 Mary Hill Road, Village of Sussex. I agree with everybody else's comments. I don't think anybody else takes care of your home like you take care of your home. I would sort of equate it to having a renter come in. So I love our Lisbon Fire Department and would like to keep it that way. And one of the things I'm curious about is Pewaukee contracting, or by contract, would they be permitted to contract with other towns and villages for these same services, thereby spreading the resources even thinner? And I'd like to know if that's addressed in the contract, and also what sort of budget controls and price increases and things are in that contract as well, so that 3 or 5 years down the road, all of a sudden, you know, if something looked comparable and we went with this decision, and then they impose all of these increases and they buy these new $1 million rigs and things like that, then we're not footing the bill for their decisions because we've lost all control now. So I'm very curious, you know, what the terms of that contract would be and what these cost measurements would be.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? Anyone on Zoom, raise your hand if you wish to speak. Public. Final call then for any citizens' comments tonight. Citizens' comments portion of them. Move on to 5B, which is discuss the necessary action regarding the future fire services. And discussion on the board level. So this tonight is a step in a process. This is not a final step in a process. This is a step of them Pewaukee presenting to us what they believe they could provide for fire services. The contract no one has seen a contract because we haven't moved on to the contract stage yet. If the board wishes, the next action they would take is, do we want to proceed further and look at a contract with Pewaukee? Not everything is figured out. We had to look to see if this was a possible thing to do. That's where we are at right now. They have supplied a model in which they believe they could provide fire service to the Village of Lisbon, which we have been shown in a abbreviated form tonight. So that's where we are at with that. A lot of questions and comments that were made tonight. I mean, it shows a lot of pride in the community. We've had pride with our Lisbon Fire Department, obviously. We're living in a generation where kids don't want to be firefighters anymore. Some do, and God bless them. But a lot don't. A lot of our firefighters don't even live here. Some do, and again, God bless them. But things are changing. We are, I believe, at 7 paramedics right now, Michelle, is that correct? Okay. How many critical care do we have right now?
3.
Critical care. Could you state the difference between the critical, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you're the best suited to answer this question. The difference between the ALS. and the
Critical care is meant for interfacility transports, basically, compared to paramedic, which we would provide to the residents.
Do we have a number of paramedics, just so everybody knows?
I had it in my last chief's report, honestly, I 13, 14 across the board between, the full-time and the paid on call.
Our current full-time paramedics. We have some in classes right now.
Yeah, we have some in class. We have 3 full-time paramedics right now.
Any questions from the board also? I don't want to just preach here.
I guess, do we want to go through and, I mean, I definitely want to answer the questions of everybody that posed them. And, I mean, is it appropriate to go through and just address the questions that?
The discussion is at the board level. We can discuss what we need to.
I guess, do we as a board want to address some of the questions that people brought up? I think it's only
Yeah,
fair that
definitely.
they hear from their elected officials about what
Sure. Agreed.
we have researched, and maybe we're not gonna be able to answer all of them because they're not all in our wheelhouse, but we can definitely answer the majority of them. I guess I believe his name was Anthony, tanker at Richmond, only one tanker. I guess I would start from the fact of how often do we need a tanker? How often is our current tanker going out? And when do we need to replace that tanker? I can tell you that our tankers were evaluated recently and we are at end of life for our tankers. So I'm not at the request for proposal stage for that, but I can tell you they're not cheap. That's a consideration of this board that we should consider is we will have to replace those tankers. I guess if anyone wants to jump in on that question.
Yeah, we currently have 2 tankers stationed in our stations. We also have an agreement where one of our tankers is currently in the village of Heartland. We had an agreement years ago where we traded off a straight stick that we have for a tanker, and then we ended up just buying the straight stick. So, but one of those is over in Heartland right now. So technically we own 3, but we have 2 in our stations. I believe it was very hard to staff 3 tankers in an event, so that's why we made an agreement with Heartland to bring one over. So that was a good agreement, I think, and it's worked over time.
You have one at each?
We have one at Good Hope, one at Richmond. Yep.
Thank you.
One tanker at Richmond, one tanker at Good Hope, and then there's also a tanker at Heartland, and that's still in effect, correct, Michelle? I'm not speaking out of turn here.
Correct. I just wanted to explain that, to make
Sure.
sure it's out there.
They are older, they were Reeboks is the wrong term, but we took the tanks off, refurbished them, put them on the chassis again, and I mean, we have definitely had some things that need to be worked on with them. One of them has a pump, it's just one has a pump, correct?
Correct.
And that one has historically had problems with water in the transfer case, which we get fixed, and I mean, fire apparatus are very expensive to maintain, but it's useless if it isn't. So.
Also the question was, if we have to take back our truck, who's gonna maintain them? I believe it was of the intent of who's gonna maintain them while Pewaukee has it. Being an accredited agency that they are, they have a certain minimum that they have to maintain. And that's from many fronts. That's from their accreditation, that's from their city standard, that's from their insurance. I would have zero worry that if the truck needs to come back to Lisbon, it's not gonna be decimated. It'll be used properly, maintained properly, and given back in the condition appropriate at that time. I guess I asked you, go take a look at their fire stations and tell me that their apparatus is not maintained. Maybe then I would have concern that it wouldn't come back maintained, but I don't have any concern that the truck, should it come back to Lisbon after a while of maybe it doesn't work out and we have to bring it back. I have zero concern that it wouldn't be maintained better than it would be maintained already. So.
In line with that, Gary had talked about the emission systems and as far as not, having enough ambulance or backups. One thing we have had with here is we had a couple ambulances we bought in the same years, and they were, I'm gonna say 6.0 Ford engines, which if you're a car guy, those are good and bad, and we had bad. And it was pretty normal for them to be both down at the same time in different times. You can get loaner ambulances from places that are working on them. We can borrow them from other municipalities. Pewaukee has a backup ambulance. In fact, one of those was gonna be stationed in one of our stations. So it definitely is a concern, the way the new emission systems are. I really wish they would deregulate those because They have a DEF system on them that is not friendly with idling, and ambulances idle a lot. And it would be really nice if they would take those off of them, but right now it is what we have to deal with. But we've learned how to. I think each station, Pewaukee, we've learned how to deal with them here, and we do what we can. There was a question about striking also. I don't believe fire can strike. Am I wrong on that?
I guess that would go to the, should it go to a contract with Pewaukee, that would fall under the firefighters contract, and I'm guessing they have a clause in their contract that they will not strike, so. I would not be worried about that. I guess it's also the same concern. What happens if our firefighters don't show up today? We're gonna make do. We're gonna rely on our neighbors. We will get it done, because at the end of the day, when the 911 call comes in, our fire department will be there, just as much as confidence as we have in them right now. Going back to one of the previous questions right before from, I believe it was Gary. What's the amazing reason why we want this contract? I would say it's two things: love and obligation. I love our Lisbon Fire Department. I have nothing but love for them in the sense of they're dedicated. There's a large contingent of them here tonight. There's not two of them here. There's a large contingent of them here. But equally, I love our citizens. And it is an oath that we took up here to make sure that when that call is necessary for our citizens, they are getting service. This is not a routine thing for boards to consider. I have oodles and oodles of research that I've done. This is not a light topic, and it's not easy. At the end of the day, somebody's gonna be happy, somebody's gonna be mad. But we have an obligation up here to make sure our community is protected. I wrote down a phrase that I think we all need to consider as a board. It's a guarantee of a consistent response with dedication to controlling responsible costs. We have a 5-year capital plan for our fire department. It's $6.4 million. And if I told you that was a robust 5-year capital plan, it's not. It's a bare bones, get the job done capital plan. I don't need to, if you're in government, the cost to continue from year to year. So essentially, what could our dollar do last year? What's it gonna do next year? It's always shrinking. Chief can tell you that the budgets are hard. If she had everything she wanted, our taxes would be through the roof. So we up here have to make decisions for the fire department, the DPW, everybody as a whole. So, long-term, we have to look at the cookie too. We are not getting paid on premise, paid on call like we need. This board has addressed it for years. Our first attempt was to keep it all just Lisbon Fire Department. That was a long time objective of ours. We've made staffing changes, we've made monetary assignments. We've diverted federal funds that we received, and unfortunately, they can't get used because there's not enough people to fill our need. This is a step in our process. This is not the end. We have a request, we have a plan, we have to get to a contract. This is not over. Our goal is to retain long-term staff. Like I said, I love our fire department, but the reality is our staff does not stay long. Look at our full-time staff is not long. In the last year, we've lost staff. We're gonna continue to lose staff, even with things that we're doing. And yes, there's always a better way to do something, and we're not all the answer makers up here. We've been in a continuous recruitment, and it's not just Lisbon. It's, if we don't band together with our neighboring communities, we're not gonna get a response. We need a response, because at the end of the day, when that 911 call goes out, somebody needs to show up. And that's our responsibility for you guys. So I asked everybody to look at the big picture. Everybody can come up here and make comment. I can make comments, but their comments always have motive behind them. Understand their motive. Critical paramedics. I like the idea, but in the reality, that served a purpose for the fire department that we used to do. We can't do interfacility transports because we can't we can't responsibly staff the calls. So we have to go away from that model that loses revenue, that it plays into apparatus. The cost to continue is ever widening, and we need to be responsible and look at a lot of different options. We didn't throw in the towel to get to this option. This was not our first option. We exhausted our first option, which was to solve our problems in-house first. A few years ago, we took two different presentations, one from Bark River Consolidated Idea, one from Pewaukee. The board at the time decided, let's stay in-house and we're gonna retool some things. We did it. We've been working at it. This is not a short-term project that's been going on. So I know I'm getting to a lot of points, but I guess we can get back to the list here.
No, it's been good. One of the questions was who approached who on this? This has been an ongoing, it's Mark had said, this has been ongoing. At one point, I want to say a little over a year ago, the heads of the Village of Pewaukee, City of Pewaukee, Lisbon and Sussex, we got together and we met a few times trying to talk about what can we share? How can we do things better? You know, everybody thinks it's all about money. Well, money is important because you can't pay for things without money. Nobody's doing this for free. Equipment isn't free. So money is always a factor. But nobody ever said, I want to do this cheap. We just sat down and said, well, how can we, you know, if you look at fire stations and where they are, our Good Hope and Sussex stations are way too close. It is what it is. You did what you could with how you could. I mean, what Chief Farley did back in 1982 was, if you actually listen to what that story was and how it happened, was incredible. The community pride that happened to bring that department together and the speed it happened and I mean, these people were working for nothing. And they came together, they found used equipment, they bought what they could and put a department together. And that was great. The problem is we don't necessarily have that community pride anymore. I wish we did. I think these are what screwed us up, quite honestly. And we are where we are now. So we met together, we've been talking and at one point, it just became between the City of Pewaukee and Lisbon. And we just kept talking, trying to figure out what we could do together. And the City of Pewaukee Fire Department is a phenomenal department. They're very good. Someone had brought up about potentially, you know, what about merging with some other departments? I'm gonna tell you, we've talked and talked about different things. Menominee Falls is the one that we probably haven't talked with, but Menominee Falls has their own thing going on right now. The location of where their stations are and everything, we just haven't talked to them. We've talked to Sussex, we talked to Merton. We have not talked with Richfield. They're a much smaller department. Heartland, years ago we did. They did not get in on the Bark River plan years ago, so they're also a smaller department and they're, I believe, happy with what they're doing right now. So we looked at City of Pewaukee, who's honestly the best show in town for who touches us. They're very professional and this could be a very good joint effort. It is not a merger, it is a contract. I want to be clear. We're not merging departments. It is a contract. There would be, during the contract's phases, there would be things put in place that protects everybody, because you have to protect everybody. It cannot be one-sided. Does Pewaukee benefit from this? I hope so. Absolutely, I hope they do, because why would they do it if they didn't? Our station, where it's located in the south, yes, they would respond to some areas in Pewaukee. That's what we want. Our Good Hope station, at some point, our Good Hope station is gonna need to be moved. It was the center station, but when we built Richmond, this station here, it was put down here for a reason that another station we put on the northeast. Moved away from the Sussex station and so we can get some good response times up there. That will have to be done at some point. It'll be in the future, but it will need to happen and that will cost money, obviously. I believe what we're doing here is gonna help bring us to that station sooner. We are basically taking capital equipment costs and we are transitioning it into operating revenue, operating for personnel. We are putting the boots on the ground. Personnel wise, as far as what will happen to our firefighters and our EMT, and it's funny because we say firefighters, but we're really a paramedic department. We respond to paramedic calls more than ALS calls, BLS calls more than anything, but we do fire, but it's almost all of our calls are health related or accident related and such. We do respond to some fire calls, but it's not nearly what it was. But those firefighters, Chief Bierce has committed to coming in, if we proceed, and talking to them and helping them with the application process to apply to the city of Pewaukee. It was stated that some will make it, some will not. It's not our decision at that point, that is theirs. They look at the credentials, they look at the fit, and it has to work for both of them also. I am unsure at this point about POCs, who would go, who would not. They don't use a tremendous amount of them, to my knowledge. But that's where we're at with that. So there has been discussions of that. I myself met with the fire department, I don't know, a couple months ago. I don't remember the exact date. So they are aware of what's going on. Until we came to this meeting tonight, yes, it was clipped. Mark and I are the ones working with them on it to try and figure out a plan that we could bring to a board. You don't bring nothing to a board. You have to bring something that you believe would work. And if you didn't believe it was work, why would you bring it? So that's where we're here with that right now. What else am I missing?
There was some questions about response times. So we had, obviously, what you may not know is there was talks about the RFP. The traditional RFP is you write up a list of requests, you then put it out, whoever bites on it, whoever can fill it, you bring it back, and then you get what they put on paper. That's not what happened here. Like the president said, this has been going on for many years with talking to different people, talking with our own stakeholders, and this was not made up overnight. But we got to a point where we had to pursue the possibility of an option that made sense for our community. And it happened to be Pewaukee. And after last year, when we decided to ask them for a request, we did develop a work group, not a quorum. We didn't, this wasn't made behind the scenes because not everybody up here was part of all the dough making. But we created that work group with two different communities, us and Pewaukee, and we had a lot of needs. And at any point, we could have walked away from that work group because it just wasn't working. But trust in the fact when I say that Pewaukee was working with us. They weren't just, we're Pewaukee, take what we got. No, they understood our needs, and we progressed, and we got further and further into it to a point where we can actually present something that's tangible and an overview of what could proceed into a contract. I believe Ms. Foote brought up the response times. Would they be longer? That was a huge concern of mine. I live in the northeast corner of our community. There was misinformation put out there that they would be responding from just Pewaukee. Not happening. Wouldn't happen for me because I would be in that boat. I would be the long response time. Wasn't going to happen. It was never in the dough making that we would just respond from just Pewaukee station. We wouldn't even be here if that was the case. But we did. We looked at, should it be one station? Should it be just Good Hope? Should it be just here? And we had a bunch of different versions of it. What we came up with was the 2-station model, and that's what we feel serves us best at this point. And we're going to continue to need to evaluate it. But we did analytical research to show that our response times would be the same or better. Our firefighters drive the same roads that Pewaukee firefighters would. They drive the same speeds. They drive the same type of vehicle. So what changes? We had to look at response time, turnout time as a whole. And we feel that they would be met as much as our current fire department or a little better, okay? And we looked at it from 2 different station models. So I can honestly sit up here and say that the data, obviously it could snow or it could rain or it could be sunny, but the average data, the response times are as good or better all the time. Just to show that there was a long-term idea to this, Waukesha County did a study many years ago. And the way of the future back then was even consolidation, mergers, whatever you call it. But in reality, it's working with your neighbors. It's a fair share. If we were in a position where we were subsidizing Pewaukee's operations, I would never even let this come to present to you. But we are going to be a fair share partner, and that's something that will have to be contractually negotiated at a next step. Okay, but I can assure you that we are gonna be a fair share partner in this deal. Why just on Facebook? That seems to be the recurring thing. We addressed it in our board meeting last night. If we had the ability to have 10,600-ish people and had all their emails in one list, we could always send out an email, that'd be great, but we don't, you know? It's cost prohibitive to actually take a flyer, because who's got to pay for it? Everybody's got to pay for the flyer to be delivered just to your door, okay? So we have legal agreements set in place of how we publish our meetings, where they're published, how much time they're published in. And we met those. I wish I knew everything about what was going on in the world, but I'm gonna miss something.
We do have the ability on our website also, if you sign up, it will send you notifications of agendas. You can go on there, you can pick which Parks Committee, Public Utilities, you can pick, and it will send you a notification that an agenda has been posted. There's no way we could do mailers. It's thousands and thousands of dollars, and it wouldn't matter how many we sent out, somebody would be upset that we didn't send one out for this or one out for that. The process for government in the United States of America is we post an agenda. People need to go and look at that agenda and see what's on it. And I know that's cumbersome and everybody is busy, but that is how it works. This was in the newspaper just recently. Now, I know people don't necessarily read the newspaper, but it was in there. It has been all over Facebook. I know that a lot of people aren't on Facebook, but it has been there. Yeah, I don't know what else we could have really done. Not right now. You can ask me after the meeting if you want. You can't. It's right now it's up here. Okay. This is another process of how a board meeting works. It's a system and it's set and.
What you're talking about, communication?
Sir? I know, you can, after the meeting, we can talk about it. It's just, that's where that public comments thing, I didn't set it up, but I gotta follow it. So otherwise it's gonna turn into a huge back and forth and it's unproductive.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
How much are taxes going to go up? I wish I had that crystal ball to tell you, but it would be remiss of me if I gave you a number right now because we don't even have a contract from Pewaukee. If the contract doesn't make sense for this community, we're not signing it. But we have to get through the steps, so I guess that's the best way I can address that.
I guess one to identify too is there was some comments, and I did see them on Facebook. This Village of Pewaukee did a fire service fee. And there was some I don't know if it was miscommunication or what between the media and the news article that was out there, but we are not on a fire service fee. We general levy everything. We're not gonna be doing what they're doing at any. I don't necessarily like a fire service fee. I'm not gonna say no future board could, because it could change with any board. But I mean, we have not discussed a fire service fee whatsoever. So this would be a general levy going into next year for sure.
Yeah, so the next one. Look at the contract first. Yes, we will get if we proceed past night, the next step is to get a contract formulated and get it out to review.
Does anyone from the board have any other questions or anything you want to add to this too?
Well, there was a question about the grass trucks. Can we talk to that, or maybe Michelle could? The grass trucks, there was some concern about, yeah. There was some concern about what the.
Oh, making sure we have one?
Yes, because there was some issue with a fire, so maybe we can speak to that.
Well, Michelle can speak to what we currently have,
Right.
which is, we have one grass rig right now.
And an ATV that we take out, yes.
So we would not anticipate any lessening of the service if something like that would happen. I mean, I would assume that the Pewaukee department would be equally as concerned about grass situations as.
They do have a grass rig, and that would be part of talks as far as
Okay.
how many would you need for a combined department?
So the last I heard that the grass truck would be located here at our current grass truck would stay here.
There was some comments about incorporation also. When we incorporated, none of this is happening because of incorporation. This is things that were gonna happen whether we were a town, village, or if somehow we became a city. These are problems that don't care if you're a town, village, or city. I believe we would be here doing this. I mean, we might, as a town, we might have been in a lot worse shape, because if we had ever been annexed, we lose tax base and then costs go up a lot more. So this has nothing to do with incorporation at all. Has to do with maintaining or improving services, and that's all that this has to do with.
I think one of the questions was coming up, what happens if Pewaukee Village needs Lisbon's ambulance out of here? We already do it. There is a possibility that our ambulance goes to Merton, goes to Heartland, goes to the Village of Pewaukee, goes to the City of Pewaukee, goes to Lannon, goes to, I mean, anywhere. I mean, understand how the fire service works. I think in a larger station cooperative agreement, you'll get better communication because they have to communicate. When you have individual departments, there's an extra effort to communicate, moving around apparatus. One of the positives I see is that the shift commander is gonna be right out of this building. That's huge. That means that we're getting direct guaranteed oversight 24 hours a day out of this building at a command staff level. To me, that's important. We did the critical care paramedic. We obviously see only 3 people are using that. We're barely even doing any, if zero, critical care necessity interfacility transports. You can look at the numbers, they've been declining.
Also have any other ones that they wrote down that we may not have addressed?
No, I have everything checked off on mine.
You, Paula?
Looking, I don't think so, though.
Linda?
I just want to say this is a decision that was not made lightly. We owe it to you as the residents, to the board, because we all live in Lisbon and we love it here. But we're not going to move ahead unless all the terms are in place. So please, our intention is not to go frivolous and sign a contract. We're really dedicated for your lives, for our lives, our homes. So we're trying our very best to kind of move in a direction. And then at the end, who knows, we might not do it. But we need, and like the gentleman were saying, that it's hard getting fire people nowadays. I don't know why, there's so many different reasons, but we need you guys out there. We need you and we thank you for your service. So I just want to put that out there. We're not here against you, we're here with you. And that's our whole intention, is keeping it reasonable and safe. And because we love our communities just like you do, and we love all of you residents, because we don't want to see anything happen either here. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
No, I think I get it.
Is there anything else the board wanted to discuss before we enter into a closed session? Becky, Linda,
Yeah,
sorry,
I don't think so.
Mark,
Nothing.
Becky? Paula?
Nope.
On item 6, which is a closed session, pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.95, parent 1, parent E, for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified business whenever competitive bargaining reasons require a closed session, more specifically regarding potential contract with the Pewaukee Fire Department for future fire services. Is there a motion to adjourn in the closed session? And just before that motion is given, the board will go into a room that's in the firehouse, so nobody has to leave. We will come back into this room after that. We're gonna take a quick, short recess after we motion to go into closed session, because we obviously have been sitting for a little while. But saying that, is there a motion to go into closed session?
I make a motion, we go into closed session.
By Beal, is there a second?
I'll
Second it.
Second by Becky. Roll call vote, please.
President Osterman,
Aye.
trustee Beal,
Aye.
trustee Boonen,
Aye.
trustee Plotecker,
Aye.
trustee Quinn.
Aye.
At 8:31, we go to the go into closed session. We're just gonna take a short recess before we do that, and then we will return. Open up. We'll be looking for a motion to come out of closed session.
I'll make a motion to come out of closed session.
By Paula, is there a second?
I second.
Second by Linda. Roll call for coming out of closed. Roll call vote for coming out of closed session.
President Osterman,
Aye.
trustee Beal,
Aye.
trustee Moonen,
Aye.
trustee Plotecker,
Aye.
trustee Quinn.
Aye.
Board is out of closed session at 9:06. All right, we'll be looking for a motion out of closed session.
I'll make a motion to authorize and direct the village attorney to draft an initial service agreement between the village and the city for consideration by the village board.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Second by Becky. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion unanimously passes 5-0. All right, item eight is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll second.
That's all. No discussion on adjournment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're out at 9:07. Thank you.
Thank you.